Hi, everybody. Many thanks for joining today. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. My name's Howard Murphy. I'm the Business Development Manager for DB Computer Solutions. I chiefly look at solutions around the Sage 50 and Sage 200 products. Today, we're going to take a look at Barscan for Sage 200. The Barscan product has been in the marketplace for about 10 years at this stage. And over the last couple of years during the pandemic, it's been one of our best selling products, chiefly because people have had time to actually organize their actual warehouse. But in short, I mean, Barscan is an extension of some of the more manual sales and purchase order processes within Sage, and also has a number of features which don't exist within the main product itself. The goal of Barscan is really to reduce processing time, reduce the amount of paperwork and give better transparency of stock throughout the actual business itself. Our demonstration this afternoon will pertain to an overview of the actual product itself, hitting on a lot of its main functions. It's also, I'll also talk briefly about some of the additional features that are there and be happy to take questions after the actual demonstration. If you're looking for a more detailed deep dive, we'd be happy to provide a one-on-one demonstration. We can do that either remotely, or we can actually visit the site and we can show you how the solution would sit within the business itself. So without further ado, what we're going to do first of all is that we're going to take a look at some of the main feature points of Barscan first before we do the actual demonstration itself. So, the key thing about Barscan is that it's very easy to use. It's once in place, there's a level of donkey work that does have to be done in situations where we don't have barcodes on an actual site. But once in place, it's easy enough for people to pick up and get working with. The training on Barscan is minimal. Once we've put the system in, it's a matter of going through processes with you and then showing you how we can apply throughout the business itself. So the chief areas that Barscan pick up from Sage itself are the goods in and goods out processes, your sales and purchase order processing. You can run stock takes on the actual handheld itself. You can also capture barcodes, existing barcodes on stock items. You can have multiple barcodes for any one given item. So that, if it's a case you think you're scanning the wrong barcode on the side of the box, it will, of course, select the correct product itself. And if, for instance, a product comes in the door and it's an unrecognized barcode, you can add it to the actual product itself there and then with the actual handheld. Now, on that, what I don't have on the list here is that barcode sits on a it sits on an Android device. We typically, we quote for sort of fairly rugged handhelds on site that, failing a forklift driving over it, it will take most knocks. But you can, of course, use an actual phone. If you're using an Android style phone, you can install the app on it, or if you have a tablet, you can do that too. We can capture the actual barcodes either via a scanner at the top of if it's a case that you're scanning it itself, and of course you can use the photo or the camera part of the actual handheld to capture it also. You can check, individual stock items. You can see the availability of it. I'll show you some of that on the actual handheld. So people walking around the warehouse can scan any particular product throughout the actual warehouse itself, and it'll give them a level of detail on the actual stock item, including how many are in which location. One of the big advantages, obviously, if you're working with Sage 200, is the fact that it also handles multi-location, and that reflects directly onto Barscan also. So you can actually pick stock from various different locations, and the locations themselves can have their own barcodes. Stock adjustments. So if it's a case that I'm allocating stock, I also have this in another area on my bullet points here. I can adjust stock on the fly. I can also allocate stock to projects if you're using project accounting on Sage 200. That is available on Sage 50 also. So just to point that out. The purchase orders, yeah, you can see all of the relevant purchase orders. You can pull up lists on the actual handhelds themselves, or you can actually generate them on the fly, but that would go back in-house for authorization to whoever's operating Sage 200. What I should point out here as well is that you can, of course, generate sales orders on the actual handheld itself, so you can walk through the warehouse. If you're with somebody and you're going through your stock area, you can scan literally you can draft up a sales order and scan individual product codes to build up an actual sales order, so you can pick and dispatch there on the fly as well. Now, although I mentioned on the handheld, there is a console for Barscan that would sit in the actual physical warehouse itself. You can have it on a number of machines if you'd like. It's a replacement for what you would be operating off on Sage 200, but there is a link that's a live link with the actual Sage database. It's effectively reading off the exact same database, so it's pretty much instantaneous, any of the actual transactions that are occurring. Location adjustments. So as I mentioned, Sage 200 chiefly has that aspect of it, but the idea is that you can have multiple aisles, columns, rows, bin locations where you can actually move stock from one area to another, or you can maintain a pick face effectively on any given aisle or row and draw down stock directly from some of the other bin locations down to where you're actually picking the stock to. You can set up a counter scanner as well, so you can scan directly off, the likes of a trade desk, for instance. You don't necessarily have to use the handhelds to do it. You can generate your own labels from the actual from Barscan. You can also print the actual labels that you need for, say, locations or individual stock items directly from the handheld as you scan it in on the actual device itself. You see there, for instance, I mentioned earlier on about allocating stock to projects, so it just allocates the stock, the actual cost of the stock to the relevant project as well, without having to make that manual stock adjustment. It links, as I say, live with Sage. So Sage obviously operates off a SQL database. It shares that information directly with Sage. So anything that's processed within Barscan, or anything that's adjusted within Sage 200 is immediately available on the handheld, the console for Barscan, or indeed on Sage 200. You don't need any additional Sage licenses. So we would sell Barscan on the actual console product, and then it's just really about an individual license for key people that are, picking or receiving the actual stock itself. You can customize the actual processes that are only available to individuals also, and they would log in with their own PIN code. One of the nice additional features that you have with Barscan is the fact that you can also link it up with various couriers as well. So it's not just for your own drivers. You can set it up if you have the login details to the API for just the other couriers as well. So I've mentioned DPD, Fastway, FedEx there as well as just some examples there, and I'll show you on screen some elements of that also. Although Sage 200 has its own batch and serial tracking, we have an extended feature available within Barscan also for the purpose of tracking any sort of tracked goods effectively, to sort of see the transactions of any given stock item. So without further ado, there's quite a bit in Barscan. As I say, I'll be giving you a sort of a general overview as to how the two products sort of work together. I'll give you a look at the actual handheld as well. like as I mentioned at the very start, if people are looking for a deep dive into Barscan, we'd be very happy to organize a one-on-one, and I'll have my contact details at the end of the actual demonstration itself. So what I'll do is now I'll just bring up a copy of Barscan here. So what I'm going to do is just bear with me for a moment. You'll see I have a copy of both Sage 200, just bear with me, and Barscan 200 here as well. So what I wanted to do first of all was just to show people who are familiar with Sage 200. This is effectively a stock list. In fact, I've put a filter in here just looking at some of the oak cabinets and what have you. So you'll see in there, for instance, the actual quantities, 115, 110 of all of these. If I'm looking in here, you'll see it's very similar also, you know, so it's like I mentioned earlier on, it's a live link between the two. If I double click on any of the actual stock items, I can bring up either a general barcode or a QR code for the actual stock item itself. And to show you what that looks like on the actual handheld, I'll just show you here. Let's see if I can draft it up. It might have shut down on me, so just bear with me for a second. No, I have it here. So if you can see that there. So this is the actual handheld I'm working with currently at the moment. I'll just turn on my camera just very quickly. So I'm just operating off a fairly generic kind of a Zebra Android device that allows me to log in, carry it around the warehouse. I can stick it in a holster at the end of the day if I want to as well. So what I'm going to do is I've got an emulation of it here, or not an emulation, I've got an actual link into it here on screen. So I'm going to operate from that. So as I say, each individual user would have their own login. So that's what we're going to do here. And you'll see here we have a couple of options for you know, some of the processes that you would see within 200. So obviously the idea here is to, you know, to avoid any kind of paperwork, to have these processes work fairly dynamically. So you'll see that if I open up any of these, I can go into orders where I can pick dispatch and order. You'll see in here my purchases here, or my PO goods. I can actually take a look and see what purchase orders I have to actually book in. But if I want to do a general stock inquiry, and I want to do an item inquiry, and I'm walking around the floor, then what I can do is I'll scan it off the screen here. You'll see that I've got pretty much the same detail as you see in the background here. I can see the actual stock item. I can see how much is in stock, how much is on order, how much has been actually allocated to existing orders. I can check the levels, so I can see for each of the individual locations, I can see where the actual quantities are there. I can look under allocations. I can see the actual sales orders that it has been allocated to. And I can also see any relative purchase orders that have the actual stock incoming. Now, some of the dates on this, some of my data is a little out of date here today, but it shouldn't make any difference. So I can see the actual information here. You'll see that'll reflect what we have up here in the background. You'll also be able to right click on any of these items here to get more information around the stock if I've held any more memos on the actual stock pieces themselves. But what we want to do is, just to show you how this operates, is that we'll go back into 200. And what we're going to do is we're going to generate an actual purchase order. So on my purchase order list, I'm going to generate a new PO. I'm going to pick GT here. I'll put in a supplier reference number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull out one of the stock items we saw earlier on. So we'll take that sync unit and we'll say 2 of those. Now, because it's Sage 200, we also have to address which actual location that this stock is going to be coming from. So if I pick factory here, for instance, I'm going to say 2 of these, save that. General purchase order, and I'm going to save that. 3289. So I'll need to remember that. So I'm just going to refresh my screen here anyway. So you'll see this is 3289. Here it is here. It's live at the moment, 77366. So if I go back into Barscan, so if I'm walking around the actual warehouse itself, and I have my screen open here, and I can look at any outstanding orders that are in here. So there it is there, 3289. I can see some of the detail in there. If I go back to my handheld, we'll go into the purchase order area here. So if I go into PO goes in. Now, if I know the number, I can just, I can just generally go and enter it in, pull it out. I can use my camera scanner if I want to as well. What you'll also see is that on these purchase orders, what Barscan automatically does is that it allocates a barcode to any one of them here. So I'm just going to bring up my handheld again. And what we're going to do is we're going to scan that code. There it is. So I can select that. And what you'll have is you have a couple of options here. At the top, I can take a picture, I can capture another barcode and allocate it to it. I can even print a sticker. What I can also do is if I swipe to the right, I can enter in a received amount, or if I go the other way, I can reset it. But in this case, I'm just going to enter it in, and it gives me an option here to indicate, even if I have a bin location set, or I can create a new bin, but it's going directly into the actual warehouse of factory here. And 2 are expected to come in. I just indicate 2 have come in the door. Confirm that, finish, confirm batch, job done. So effectively it gets updated here. The stock item has been received. And then on the other side, what we'll have is that the actual goods will come into stock. So I could literally walk around with my handheld, and the purchase order I can have access to pretty much anywhere. I can see the detail on my actual handheld, and I can, as I book that stock directly into that location or into a quarantine location, that'll be updated back in-house on Sage 200 Live. Same thing with the actual sales orders. So if it's a case that I'm in Sage 200, and I'm just going to shorten these for a second, and I go into my sales order and I generate a new sales order. Pick somebody in the black here, just one sec. Choose something similar again. And we're going to see in here, we're going to sell about 2 of them. Actually, we need to indicate the warehouse first, sorry. So we've got 100 free stock in the factory, so we're going to sell 2 of those and save that. Here we go, 5117. So refreshing our screen here again, there's the sales order sitting in the list as the way it would normally sit within 200. And then within Barscan, in the actual warehouse itself, we're looking at pick sheets. So in here, I'm trying to remember, there it is on top there, and you'll see there's a list of color codes in here. Some of these are out of date, so you'll see red on them. They should be picked in dispatch. You'll also see, some other columns in here which you can right click on. You can change these columns, add in other ones as well. So I have the print status, the document number, document date, customer account. I can indicate a driver, one of our own if I want to as well, that's actually dispatching the goods, promise date, the type of delivery, any additional details on the actual address itself, part shipment, back order lines, can print, has pickable items, build required if it's a bill of materials. So in this particular case, as I mentioned earlier on, I can actually double click on it here and I can see the actual sales order. If I go to my, here, my handheld again. So on the screen here, I'm just going to go back to my sales orders. I can now pick the order. Again, if I know what it is, I can pull it from there. I can scan it via camera, or I can actually just scan it directly from the screen. So I have my sales order there, and I can go to pick that. So you can see there's the 2 oak cabinets that are in there. It's in an unspecified bin, but I'm just going to put in 2 of those, dispatch those, pick all, and confirm that, and say yes. Now, in some cases, we can auto dispatch the actual order once it's picked, and it'll print the dispatch note ready for the actual person picking it at the door. What I'll do is I'm going to close that off, jump back in here, refresh the screen, and you'll see there it's disappeared off the actual screen itself, ready for dispatch. So if I go into my dispatch summary, then I have another screen here that people would focus on here. You can see there it is there, it's picked, awaiting dispatch. So I've got a nice color codes in here just to indicate what status it is. And what you'll also see as well is that it's date stamped, time stamped, everything else. So everything's fully audited with regards to the movement of stock, the actual processing of any particular orders. I'll be able to see it from there. What I can also do in here as well is that I can unallocate the stock if it's a case that I need to allocate it to a different order. I have a few other bits and pieces in here that I can do also. I can assign a driver and so on. And I can reprint the pick sheet, reprint the dispatch. I can even print off a physical copy of it and walk around the warehouse and use it in conjunction with the handheld also if I need to. So in this case, we'll jump back to our handheld again. Again, what I should say to you here also is that you can manually dispatch the stuff directly on screen. You don't necessarily have to use the handheld, but in this case, I am going to use it. So just bring it up here. So in here, I can go into dispatch order. And what you'll also notice as well is that as I actually choose an actual line up above here, there is a barcode available down on the bottom that I can actually pick up from as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scan that particular one. If it picks it up, if it doesn't, probably not. Probably too small on my screen here. So I'm going to pull it from here and choose, let's see, just so you can see the smaller screen here. So I'll pull it up there, I can dispatch it, confirm that, and it prints the docket. Now I can manually do all of that from here. You can see I can print a sticker here as well. I can also, if I go to, let's just see, that will allocate the item here. So sales purchase order. Just bear with me for a second. Yeah, so if I go back in here into Sage 200, you remember earlier on it was allocated. You can see there it was ready for dispatch, and there I can see it's fully dispatched and ready for invoice. So, and then I can continue on here. So the idea is that I can generate an order. So if you have an order coming in from a website, or you have people accessing Sage 200 directly, they're entering the order via even Sage CRM, it will all appear here in this actual sales order list. And then in turn, live, that's fed down to Barscan itself and the handhelds. So theoretically, you could have an order in, picked and dispatched literally as quick as you can get a guy on the floor with all the documentation catered for also. What I'll just sort of show you here as well is that I should have said it earlier on, is the fact that on your purchases here, for the order we generated earlier on, we can of course print off a GRN here too. I'm not sure if I have. So that's just to give you an indication as to what that looks like. This is the GRN. And in fact, what we can do also is that we can tie this in with, I'll just show you here now. We can tie it into notification emails. If I set up a list of users with regards to the purchase orders, we can indicate that these notifications, that a copy of the GRN will be emailed back to the individual within the company. So it's a copy of pretty much what you saw there a moment ago to say the goods have come in and they've gone into a specific location. What we can also do here as well is that we can have an auto dispatch on the dispatch docket. So as I dispatched that order earlier on, we can indicate in here exactly to which role, because if you remember back within Sage 200, you have multiple contacts in there and you're indicating what documentation they're receiving. So I can indicate in here, as far as a dispatch is concerned, who it goes directly to. I can put in some text in here, just some generic text if I want to. You'll also see there that we can email the invoice or email on dispatch. We can also set that up also. And while I'm in here, you'll see that I've got DPD GFS in there as well. This is where we can integrate it directly with the actual courier itself, where we enter the details from them. You'll see Fastway, TNT, Greenway, FedEx, and so on. And we've also some others that we can integrate with also. So what that would mean is, as the actual the item has been dispatched, it updates the relevant system via the API. That you can print off your dispatch docket, and the courier is informed as to where the order's going and what have you. So that's what I wanted to show you there. There are other elements to Barscan here also, for instance, around BOM. So with the bill of materials, we can indicate, we can actually build a bill of materials using the handheld device also. So we would have allocated each of the individual, how would you say, components here on this side. Each of those would have their own unique barcode also. And with that actual, one of the choices, one of the options that you have with Barscan is that you can pick the built item, or you can actually, as it comes down to being picked, you can pick each of the individual components that compile back up to the actual overall product. So you can do that also. And like that as well, you can also split stock. So if it's a case you have some stock items, they've already got components pulled together, and you want to split them back out into their individual components and update the stock back within 200, then we also have an option to do that also. Now you'll see for each of these screens that we're pulling together here that we can export this, whatever you're looking at on screen, directly into Excel. And where that can come in handy also is that if we take a look at, where is it now? Within here, if I take a look at my transaction log, you can see there I can pull out specific information from there. So if I'm looking at that sales order I did earlier on, you can see it there, sales order picked, sales order dispatched. You can see time, date throughout on the actual audit itself. And it's the same thing with any traceable items too. I have none in there currently at the moment, but if I had a lot number, date, or some form of batch or serial number, I can type it in there and I can actually pull out the full sort of transaction history of that particular batch item. Generally, what I'll also show you here as well is the fact that, as I mentioned earlier on, as part of the actual process of implementing Barscan, particularly for Sage 200, we talk you through the specific setup you have within the warehouse itself. And we also look at how we can optimize how you're doing things. Now, generally, when we're dealing with 200, we have a warehouse manager in place who generally knows what they're doing anyway. But we take a look at this and we bring in some experience with regards to how we've approached this with other customers and how we've made it more efficient and what they've done. But we're not going to reinvent the wheel if it works for you the way it's happened, the way you currently have it set up. But we will make recommendation as to how it will work best with the actual barcodes and barcode scanning. What you see in here is that for each of the warehouses or each of the actual stock locations, you've got each of the individual bin codes here as well. We can, of course, set up a full grid for the likes of aisles, columns, rows, what the pick face is, and so on. I mentioned earlier on, we can set up serial stock here as well. So we can build a list of serial stock items here also. And one of the other things that obviously you can do as well is that you can generate back within Sage 200 under stock here. I can create an actual stock take list like the way you would currently. I can print that list off, and then that would be fed down to the actual handheld also. So it's a more rapid way of how would you say, of actually running a stock take also. So I can do it from there. I can also book stock back in if it's a case that I'm taking in returns. You'll see there what I can also do as well is that I can do a warehouse transfer. So if I'm on the floor, and what I can do is I can pull out, let's say, where am I going here? Sorry, just bear with me for a second. It's not in there now, sorry, just bear with me. It's within the bins, yeah, bin move. So I can go in there. You'll see if I go to a particular warehouse. So if I bring that up here on Barscan and I take a look at a stock item, if I can remember where I put them. So these ones here, so this particular one I can bring up. There's my barcode, or if I'm walking around the floor, I won't need to see it on screen, obviously. And I'll open this up if I can. Sorry. I'm working off two screens and I think it's a little offset, so just bear with me. So I scan that item. Oh, that's not in that particular warehouse. That's what I should have spotted already. So it's probably in the factory. Just bear with me. So there's a sink unit there. I can indicate what bin it's coming from. In there, these are all in unspecified, so I probably should have picked somebody. If I go back actually and pick another area, just bear with me. I'll just cancel that. I'll pick these guys. If I take a look at this one here, and we'll take a look at that instead. Just see if they're in the same ballpark here. So bin move. There, no, I don't have them set to any particular bin location there currently at the moment, but I can select them. I can take them from one bin. I can indicate what stock goes to where. I can also say what bin it's going to, and if I want to as well, I can actually create a new bin, print a bin sticker there as well, so I can build one on the fly, and that would allow me to transfer the stock directly from one bin location to another. So it's a nice, quick, fast way of doing it. I don't have to go through a whole stock allocation process back on Sage 200. They're just some of the general items, within Barscan 200. As I say, there are some far more detailed operations that we can perform directly through 200 itself. We've done it for clients that have, maybe 1 or 2 handhelds, in some cases, maybe 10 or 12 handhelds of people out walking around on the actual floor. We can have it work with multi-company. We can have, one of the recommendations that we typically would have if you're working with different companies where stock is within the same warehouses, that possibly you would use a separate handheld for each company just for convenience sake in moving the stock around. But everything that we do at the start of the actual process is really talk through the existing setup, how we can actually make improvement on site with you guys as far as implementing the likes of the barcodes and stock management is concerned. The other aspect of it is as well as the actual setup of the barcodes themselves. So we have a couple of different ways in the way that we can actually help you manage that. So obviously, we want to get the barcodes in there. You can add them in on the fly afterward also, but the usual recommendations are that if you can get the actual barcodes directly from the suppliers, we can import them into the system. We can run some tests on the information before it goes in, and we can assist you in that actual process. We typically would give you a list of elements for your homework before we implement the system in itself. But when we get around to actually implementing it and having it go live, then the actual training is fairly minimal, as I mentioned earlier on, as it's fairly intuitive, as you can see from the actual screens themselves. So that's the brief overview. As I mentioned, we can give you a far more detailed look at the actual product as it relates directly to you as a business. But that's what I have for now. I also just want to throw it out to anybody there. If they've any questions, please send them on into me there, and I'll have a look through and see if I can answer anything directly with you. If not, I'll come back to you as a separate meeting, and I'll talk through what we can actually do for you or how the solution is fit. I must have done a great job. No one's asking any questions. As I say, you know, we can usually in going through these things, when we're demonstrating Barscan, when we're actually looking at demonstrations for customers, it's generally quite brief. Okay, we have a few questions in here. Let's have a look. Does Barscan link with Unpust? I think we have something for Unpust. Yeah, I think we've done that before. I'll definitely double check and get that over to you, Stephen. I think we have done that before. We've been asked that previously. I know that. Can you implement a pod system for multi-drop deliveries? So interesting you should say that. What we have done, because of the fact that we're operating off the device that you saw there earlier on, is that we can also put together pod screens. So, you know, as it's being allocated to an actual driver, all they're being told is the quantity that they're delivering. It's not necessarily saying what's on the actual shipment, just the number of parcels that are out for delivery, what's to go to which customer, and of course they can put a signature on it as well. So I hope that answers your question, Jackie. Any other questions? So don't forget, look, you know, I'll have the actual email address up in a moment, but you can contact me at howard@dbcomp.ie. I'll send each of you my contact details anyway, so if you want to talk through in general, I'll also send a copy of the actual recording of Barscan. That'll go out to each individual as well. Can you itemize the pod delivery system? Potentially, yes. I can take a look at that for you. I might need just a little bit more detail on what you require, Jackie. But yeah, I can possibly give you a couple of examples. If you can just give me an indication, drop me an email and show me what you're looking for. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Declan. I see you're going by your wife's name. That's okay. Apologies. It's going to be stuck in my head now. I'm going to be calling you Jackie now when I'm talking to you next. Yeah, absolutely. I'll send details over to you. No problem at all, Dick. Okay, well, we've no further questions there, but look, guys, if you have anything at all, I'm going to send you all my phone number. You'll have my email. You can give me a call directly at any stage. I can go through any specifics with you. We can log on. We can get down to some of the nitty-gritty if you need to as well. But for now, I'm just going to give you a thank you there and give you my email address. I'll leave that on screen for a little while. As I say, we record the session. As soon as we have it up, everybody will have a copy of it. So I'll send that over to you. And look, hopefully I'll be talking to you fairly soon. So listen, thank you very much for attending. Really appreciate your time. And look, I look forward to talking to you soon.